Located at the ancient site of Delphi in Greece on the southern slopes of Mount Parnassus about 155 miles northeast of Athens, the Temple of Apollo was erected to honor and commemorate the god Apollo slaying the monster Python so that he could take domain over the Titan Gaia, more commonly known as Mother Earth. In order to gain forgiveness for slaying her son Python, Apollo was ordered to fly away and to engage in service for 8 years before he could come back. Apollo is known by many names: Sol, Helios, Cynthius, Pythias, or Phoebus, god of the sun, fine arts, poetry, music, and medicine. Apollo is the son of Jupiter, god of the sky, and Leto, representing the dark night, and was born on the island of Delos. Apollo was a salient component in the depiction of Delphi's wealth, the overall political appeal to the rest of Greece and its surrounding states. This relationship is confirmed by the excavated bronze cult votives and other possessions which were dedicated to Apollo from the middle of the 8th century. Every 4 years, the Pythian Games were held in much the same style as the Olympics in order to honor Apollo's victory. In fact, the Pythian Games can be seen as the early Olympics. In addition to sporting events, there were also musical competitions as well. The winners were given laurel leaf crowns by a young boy who was specially chosen to participate in a reenactment of the slaying of Python. Laurel leaves were said to have spiritual significance to Apollo, hence their use in festivals and games concerning him. The temple housed the oracle of Delphi, who was the most important priestess and prophetess amongst the Greeks. She was kept in the Adyton, an inner area of the cella of the temple. It was said that she could confer with the divine and prophesy the future due to mystical vapor that rose from a cleft in the earth, created by a holy spring. But recent thought is that the temple was located on site of conscious altering gas emissions, which may have been what inspired her so-called divine power. People traveled from all over to seek her counsel, and she was consulted before all major events such as wars or political movements. Her prophecies were known to be ambiguous enough to have double meaning, and the end outcome was up to the one seeking the advice. The oracle was so well loved and respected that the cella of the temple was filled with votive offerings to her and Apollo. Things such as musical instruments, crowns, weapons, jewelry, etc. were all given. The oracle was a fixture from the 8th century BCE down to 393 AD, when the Roman Emperor Theodosius ordered that pagan rituals no longer take place, and ordered the temple destroyed as well. An excerpt from the hymn to Pythian Apollo reads, "In this place I am minded to build a glorious temple, to be an oracle for men, and here they will always be perfect hegatombs, both they who dwell in the Peloponnesus and the men of Europe, and from all the wave-washed isles, coming to question me. And I will deliver to them all counsel that cannot fail, answering them in my rich temple." The temple has been partially restored since the 4th century. Fragments of the pedamental sculptures of both archaic, classical, and Hellenistic temple are displayed today in the Delphi Archaeological Museum. The museum houses the original ancient artifacts, which were found amongst the ruins. The bare ruins of Delphi still remain, but the treasures held within the museum help us visualize what the temple looked like in its glory days.
The Temple of Apollo has seen multiple incarnations as it has been the subject of natural disasters, fire, and purposeful destruction. The first temple was built in the 7th century BCE by the architects Trophonios and Agamedes. It is rumored to have been made of laurel wood, but no solid evidence has yet to back that claim up. Recent archaeological evidence suggests it was made of limestone with a wooden roof. The temple was ultimately ruined by a fire. The second temple was built in the 6th century BCE by unknown architects. The rebuild was funded by a wealthy Greek family, the Alcmaeonids, according to Herodotus. The family also funded many other art and architecture projects during that time. In honor of their generous funding, the temple was renamed the Temple of Alcmene. The temple was said to have been of the Doric order and featured 6 columns across the front and back and 15 columns along each side. The temple was destroyed in an earthquake in 373 BCE. The third and final time the temple was built was in 330 BCE by the Corinthian architects Spintharos, Phenodoros, and Agathon. The temple was built similar to the one before it with the same column layout. It measured 71 feet by 191 feet with Doric columns that were 35 feet tall. The columns were made of Corinthian limestone covered with white stucco made up of marble dust. The foundation was made of limestone as well. The pavement and the cella, however, were made of gray stone. Cypress wood beams supported the pure marble roof. Because of the softness and porosity of the stone used, the remains of the temple have shown advanced signs of decay. Remnants of limestone and terracotta have been found from previous incarnations of the temple as well. The temple featured pediment sculptures made by Praxeas and Androstenes. Very little is known about these works or about the adornments of the temple in general besides the west pediment depicting the battle between giants and men. The east pediment may have portrayed Apollo coming to Delphi. There are also known to have been 2 altars within the interior. One of them was to Poseidon, the god of the sea, and the other was to Hestia, the goddess of the hearth. There were also statues of 2 of the Fates and a statue of Zeus meant to replace the third Fate. The temple, as well as Delphi itself, was subject to multiple raids and lootings by people such as Emperor Nero and Constantine I. So much of the art no longer exists or has been taken, and attempts at restoration during these times were failed. The entablature of the temple would also have been decorated with shields that went all the way around the building. The temple also featured an oracular shrine, but the details of this shrine are unknown as their destruction was thorough and complete. It is believed to have been housed behind the cella, which can account for the temple's unusually long length. Recent archaeology also leans towards there having been a ramp along the front of the temple, which is a feature usually used in Peloponnesian architecture. So it has been speculated that Peloponnesian architecture was what caused the inspiration for the temple itself. Many of the Greek states helped to pay for this rebuild, but a large amount of the money came from the Phocians, who were fined for damages done to Delphi during the Sacred Wars from 356 BCE to 346 BCE. The Phocians took control of the temple and its treasury on the grounds of Delphi cultivating the sacred land. The Phocians, in league with the Spartans and the Athenians, used the money from the treasury to fund mercenary armies. After 10 long years of fighting, Philip II of Macedonia gained enough power to bring a peaceful end to the war. So the Phocians were forced to pay for the temple's damages. Additionally, some of the fine money went to erecting an over 50-foot tall statue of Apollo to stand next to the temple and overlook the city of Delphi. The last temple was destroyed during Emperor Theodosius's reign in 390 AD in order to dispel pagan religion and make way for Christianity. The oracle was also put to an end as well during that time. The site of Delphi was ultimately destroyed by zealous Christians not too long after. After the destruction of Delphi, Christians began to settle at the site and even went so far as to deface the buildings and temples with crosses. In addition, churches were built and the Christian community flourished.